Those here present, welcome to the board meeting of the Board of Selectmen. And we have several items, and I won't belabor the point. We'll just move it right into it. We have scheduled executives, pardon? Oh, I thought somebody said something, excuse me. Executive session, and we should be out relatively shortly. And from there, we'll go into the announcements, unless you want to wait until do executive session until after we see Steve, talk with Steve.
I have no.
We can move it along.
Preference.
Is that okay, Jeff?
That's fine. That's
okay.
fine.
All right. So let's move into the regular agenda. Please go
For the announcement.
Yep.
No, sit,
Right by the microphone there. Thank you.
you're on.
Is that good? That's fine. Okay. I'm Ariel Elan. I am from the town of Montague. I am a volunteer town official, currently named an outdated name, the Montague Pipeline Liaison, because our Energy Committee is not meeting this summer. And if I'm going to be called the Energy Policy Liaison, they need to sign off on it. And the reason I'm here is because after the Kinder Morgan pipeline was canceled, Montague became aware that Berkshire Gas, which of course is still imposing a moratorium on new and expanded service to all of its Pioneer Valley towns, we became aware that Berkshire Gas is going before the Department of Public Utilities for a review of their 5-year forecast and supply plan. Now, they do this routinely every 2 years because they have to keep updating for current conditions. And it's the kind of process that normally would not come to the attention of a municipality. It's kind of considered a technical, boring regulatory process. But at this moment, here we are with 8 communities in Berkshire's Eastern Division not being able to access gas hookups, transfers, being very much inconvenienced, and depending on the community, sometimes it's actually added up to quite a bit of expense. You know, if a business has decided not to build or locate in one of the towns, etc. So we became aware that the DPU needed to hear from communities, and really we're hoping our presence as what they call interveners in the proceeding will encourage the DPU to hold Berkshire's feet to the fire to make incremental local changes in its infrastructure to end the moratorium. And what we mean by local changes in infrastructure, the company has on its books and has actually noted in previous forecast and supply plan reviews that there are things they could do and they could have done any time in the past 6 years to expand the Greenfield feeder line, store more liquefied natural gas in Whately. They actually did an expansion to the Northampton feeder line 4 years ago and somehow managed to not expand it enough. So it's how they've decided to do their planning in the past few years is quite questionable, and this is public knowledge that a lot of people, including members of my select board, have speculated that it's really not a Berkshire Gas decision per se, that their interest in being so heavily invested in the pipeline that was canceled had to do with the ownership of Berkshire Gas, which is a multinational energy corporation based in Spain called Iberdrola. And, you know, a very big part of Iberdrola's business is importing and exporting gas on tankers. So there was the thought that this pipeline was meant to get to the east coast of Massachusetts and from there have export supply available, and that in the meanwhile the pipeline would drop off a little gas here. We can't prove it, but it's been worrisome that the pipeline was canceled, and yet Berkshire Gas has not taken any steps to say, well, here, we're going to do this, 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 and this, so that we're not subjecting all these communities to a moratorium. And so on that basis, the town of Montague did apply for intervenor status at the Department of Public Utilities. And that means that any testimony or evidence we present is required to be examined by the DPU commissioners. It's not just like testifying at a public hearing, which is good, but they're not legally required to evaluate what is stated in a public hearing. Intervenor status, you do it with an attorney. You have the right to do discovery, asking the company questions. You have a right to have an expert witness analyze their public information and also their confidential information. And you know, our attorney and expert then have a right to present their evaluation and their recommendations to the DPU. So it's a way to be it's like being a full party in a legal proceeding. It is represented by an attorney. It does cost money. An anonymous donor gave Montague and any other town that wants to join as co-interveners, taking the positions and the perspective that we're taking. There's a starter grant of $10,000 that we're using, and in the meantime, all of the towns that have decided to intervene with us are, you know, starting to look at the possibility of being able to contribute money, but it's not something anyone has signed up to do in advance. We're starting on the starter grant, and then different communities and their voters have to evaluate, is this a good investment for us? Do we want to invest $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, whatever it would be, in making sure that we're in this proceeding from the start to finish, and it's, you know, going to bring us benefits? And right now, Town of Deerfield is co-intervening. Town of Hadley filed late. They weren't able to take this to their select board until the day after the filing deadline, but the attorney did late file an application for them. It's a good application. I think it looks reasonable when I read it. I can't imagine if the DPU does allow these other towns in, I can't imagine them saying, oh, but Hadley, you were a couple days late, so don't come in. Town of Amherst didn't join Montague and Deerfield's intervention. They're intervening, you might have seen it in the Gazette, on their own. They really wanted to chart their own course. I respect that, you know. So that's...
Are you expecting a decision from us this evening?
Well, that would have been fantastic, but I think it didn't get on the agenda in that format, so
Right.
I'm sharing the information.
Okay.
I am very much interested whether or not you would even consider late filing to intervene. I'm very much interested in hearing from anybody here, and rushing in late. All my cards are in the car, but Marlene has my contact information. As a matter of information and potential testimony to incorporate during the case, even if there's no interest whatsoever in intervening, I'm interested in hearing any testimony of cost or inconvenience or delay of something or lack of choice that has been caused by the moratorium. You know, full disclosure in terms of where Montague and Deerfield are coming from. We are in the proceeding partly to try to guarantee that Berkshire Gas is not waiting around and waiting around and waiting around for another massive transmission pipeline. We really want this resolved locally and incrementally. Even the company itself doesn't really claim a shortage except on very cold peak days. And last winter they didn't even have a day that went to the standard of the day when they say they're short up in Turner's and Greenfield. So, you know, as a green community, we are definitely looking at gas as something that our communities need to access as a matter of what's already available and the infrastructure that's been built and what people need to do in order to do business. But where people have a choice and can plan and, for example, are going to build a new building and can get close to what they call net zero, incorporate the solar panels, incorporate the major insulation, you know, we're hoping that this is going to be an interim additional supply rather than flood the Commonwealth with a fossil fuel that's fairly damaging, actually, when you add up the full life cycle of methane from the place where it's harvested out in the Midwest at the fracking sites, and the methane leaks go through the compressor stations along the pipes, and it's deliberately vented there. Then it gets into where you're going to use it and burn it, and there's CO2. But the methane itself that's leaked along the way is devastating. So now the scientists are saying, not the government scientists, they kind of go with what the companies want you to think, but all the independent scientists from about 6 universities have gone out and measured, and they say what we're measuring at these hundreds of thousands of fracking sites and at the compressor stations, and you've got an overall climate impact that's about equal or worse than coal. So that's big news. I didn't know that a year and a half ago. I learned that through working on the pipeline issue. So we're looking for the incremental use of gas, not a flood of gas, just kind of burying the region. And, we're out front about that.
Okay.
On a practical level, incremental solutions can get the job done sooner also. I mean, sitting around and waiting for another interstate project that might not ever be permitted, that's 4 or 5 years out.
Yeah.
Whereas the incremental infrastructure changes that we've seen testimony, Montague intervened in a previous case. It was one of the contract cases, Berkshire Gas with the pipeline. So our expert witness is a gas industry expert. He's actually not particularly interested in conservation. He's a gas guy. And, he looked at the records and said, I see that they could end this within 1 to 2 years. By doing this, by doing this, by doing this. He gave a list of technical changes that, in fact, Berkshire has on the record as something they considered and didn't do.
Yeah.
So we're looking at 1 to 2 years out if they adopt the plan that we are presenting.
Okay. When do you expect a response from us, for instance? Yesterday?
I'm offering this information, and if you decide you would like to try to late file, I'll have to tell you, the longer it is from the original deadline, the harder it would be to get in, but still worthwhile doing. And again, being very, very frank, even if you didn't want to get in and intervene, would love to hear any testimony. And also, as we continue with the case, it's going to be some challenge to fund it. So in the last case Montague did, we actually had a number of co-funding towns from Franklin County that just contributed money to our pipeline intervention fund. So we would be very, very happy to receive any contributions along the line also from your town government. I know we're all stretched, believe me, I do, or from business people or individual donors. We set up an account to receive those donations with our town accountant set it up last time, and I know she can do that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So many
Any
options.
questions? Joe?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you for the information. And I had, in the packet, Marlene had, excuse me, had included information that you had
Right.
sent. So it's nice to find out that there's information like this and that there's groups and towns and organizations looking to try to make a change with Berkshire Gas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, formally or informally, questions or ideas or, again, any kind of support, I'd be most happy to hear from anyone. You do have my email address
Yes,
and
I
phone,
do.
right? Okay. So I would invite you to share that freely since, as I said, I dashed out of the car and all the cards are sitting in the car.
Okay. I was just going to mention that Marlene will be the contact for the board.
Right.
Okay, so any information that comes from her in reverse, so to speak, is straight from the sources.
I understand
Okay.
that's how we work in
All right.
Montague also.
Yeah, all righty. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
for
you.
coming down.
Wonderful.
Okay. Is it okay to do the chief first?
Sure.
Is that
Yeah.
going to be all right? Stephen, you come forward, please, all right? For the record, Fire Chief Stephen Gahn, he's going to give us a department update. And when his presentation is completed, the board will be moving into executive session. And when we come back, we will be back hopefully shortly after we go into executive session. And
In addition to what
we will
we already
be
have?
completing the agenda, which is very extensive, 15 different topics.
It's in addition to?
addition, yeah,
Okay,
this
this
is
is
the
an addition,
report.
okay.
Yeah, I see.
Okay.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, so briefly, I guess before I start this, I actually have something to add to the gas discussion very quickly. we work hand in hand with Berkshire Gas. They have a significant size line coming through town, which they actually doubled in size, whatever, 4, 5, 6 years ago. They also struck it 7 or 8 years ago with an excavator. But it's we have a very good working relationship with Berkshire Gas. I have the phone number for the top of the food chain in Berkshire Gas in the company in terms of field supervisors and making things happen. Obviously, there's a moratorium. We have no horse in the race there. I will tell you this: that I have the it's a town by town choice as whether or not you allow dual source. So a house has natural gas. They can supplement. They can still expand onto their house and do construction and do things like that. They just have to obviously have another source like propane. So there's actually a lot of houses that have natural gas coming in the front or on the side of the house, and they have a propane tank in the back. We've allowed that. I spoke with the plumbing inspector probably a year ago about it. We don't have currently any houses that people have taken up the option. There's a house renovation that they're going to utilize it, I believe, on Plantation, and I think there's no one else so far. But we are, we've taken steps, I've taken steps in my department and talking with the building inspector and the plumbing and even the electrical inspector in trying to meet the need. I'm also obviously in discussion, understanding gas and Berkshire Gas that they do have, there's LNG. There's a significant LNG facility in Whately. We've been up there and trained with them. They obviously openly invite us, and Berkshire Gas invites their training session up there with their LNG facility. And Berkshire Gas actually has other LNG facilities it runs in the area. There's no LNG in Hatfield. So that's just a quick gas thing because they were talking about gas, and I just wanted people to understand that they can still. The moratorium causes obviously a problem, but we do allow dual source if people want to use them.
Thank you.
Briefly, I'll go over, talk about the department and stuff. I'd spoken to Marlene and just wanted me to come up, give an update. Obviously, with steady fire call volume, we're about 75 so far of the year. That's going to map out to about 150 again because we go up and down. In the winter months, we usually get a little uptick and stuff like carbon monoxide calls and chimney calls and things like that. So that's in accordance with past years. In June, we did send we have some firefighters last year, 6 that went to 40 hours of training to do wildland. They're credentialed to actually travel across the country. They work with a Massachusetts group. We sent them to Holland with a tanker truck, a water tender, and a brush truck as part of the state mobilization, as part of the task force in this region. We've been part of the task force in years in various capacities. Basically, it's an assemblance of vehicles and units, and it's on the state mobilization plan. We could utilize it here, and we send resources out. It's very broad mutual aid that's run by the Department of Fire Services
When you say Holland, you meant Holland, Mass. Right?
Yes, Holland, Mass. I did put Holland, Massachusetts.
No, I knew that, but in
Yes.
case the people on TV thought.
Oh, yes, yeah, no, we didn't send anyone,
Firefighters.
not to Holland. I had a gentleman went to Holland, but that's another story, yes. Yes, Holland, Massachusetts. And in the past few weeks, we've also done some mutual aid. We went to Northampton once, we've been to Whately twice, but in turn, they've come here to us. Other times. So it's very much a back and forth. It's worked out nicely. The ambulance is then again on track over 300 calls. And again, we've gone out of town and we've utilized mutual aid in town. Right now we have about 22 active firefighters, 2 on leaves of absence for various things. It's about the status quo. We're 22, 24, 25. About all the time. We could use 5 more easily. I could take 5 more. Because you know what? The 5 more, I have 3 or 4 people that could walk away tomorrow. Some who've given, 30 years. So it's a kind of, you have to constant cycle. So we obviously could use a little more. EMTs, obviously, we're low. We're low on EMTs. We have 6. And so you get somebody has illness and something like that, then you're down to 5 for a few days, and vacation, you're down to 5 or 4. We again could use some more EMTs. I have 3 in the pipeline. I have 1 that's moving to town. I have 2 more that are just finishing their testing process. My hope is that within a couple of months we'll have those 3 more. And then we budget every year. We budget one line in the budget for sending people to EMT school. In the fall, we're going to undertake a larger recruitment campaign, along with some of the fall festival, the Luminarium, some other events. We're going to have a bigger recruitment campaign. We're going to do a bulk mailing to the households. Maybe there's people just moved to town, maybe there's people don't understand what we do, and maybe they might be interested. At the same time, it's, it's for firefighters and for EMTs. So, we might be able to, we'll train people from the bottom up. So you can come in the door with no experience, and we're more than happy to teach you and work with you. The ambulance just had its state inspection. It's probably close to the inspector said. It's probably the best one we've had in years, partially because I was able to dedicate time to preparing us and making sure that, everything and implementing my systems. It went very well. The state, the Commonwealth has made a number of changes over the years. We kind of sit in this limbo where we have an intermediate level ambulance service, but it can't exist till after April 1st. So we're either going to become a basic ambulance service, which we are either way. We're going to become basic service from April to undetermined, and we could maintain a basic service forever. Though, we've had some discussions, I had some discussions with Capital last year about, putting some money into Capital, into the ambulance. We could run a paramedic level ambulance service. So if I can infuse a few more EMTs, that also, the more advanced ambulance service sometimes infuses people who have a greater interest. You might attract some people who didn't really want to have part with the basic ambulance service, but they might want to be part of a paramedic ambulance service. So it's something to talk about. We continue to deliver service. April will drop to the basic level because of the way the credentialing works and the recertification and the licensing. And then obviously I'll be by April I will have spent, I'm sure, a fair amount of time working with Capital, because that'll be like December and January. And we'll have a great idea about which way we're headed. One of the things we run into financially with the ambulances that we pay out $17,000 a year in intercept fees. So paying another paramedic to get into our ambulance, when we at times have paramedics in our ambulance, but because of the licensing. So we're talking $16,000 or $17,000 a year. We could probably reduce that by 11. So you're talking a $40,000 capital item. It's 4 years to get our money back. So it's something to look at. Obviously, I'll run it through Capital and we'll work through the town process. I am happy to say that this year, the ambulance costs roughly, I didn't look at the exact figure, roughly $64,000 to $66,000 a year to run the ambulance. This year we brought in, as of mid-June, the fiscal year, we had brought in 75. So I would say the end of, but it takes, you could see 3, 4, 6 months down the road collecting on fiscal 16 bills. So realistically, I think I would be feel very comfortable saying the end fiscal 16 figure is going to be an $80,000 in revenue on $66,000 in expense. The ambulance is in the positive, is in the black by a significant amount. And that's something also, you reduce your expenses, we can build that over years. Then that turns into buying a new ambulance and not sucking too much from taxation or bonds and such. Grant opportunities. We have aggressively chased grants. I believe in grants. Grants are what, can suddenly take the pressure off any municipal budget. We've unsuccessfully applied for 3 separate grants in the last few months. Assistant firefighters grant, we applied for about $20,000, $16,000 worth of coats and some other stuff. FM Global, we applied for some training stuff, and the volunteer fire assistance provided some wildfire stuff. The main reason we really didn't get these grants is because we're not a disaster. We have a strong department. They're competitive grants, but that's really it. The VFA grant, the wildland stuff. I applied for wildland stuff to replace stuff we have. But there's people out there that don't even have the stuff we have. Yeah. So, I learned from that. I said, well, geez, I applied to replace the shirts they wear when they do brush fires because we don't wear the heavy gear. But there's people who don't even have those. So, they're very nice, they tell you, but they express here, you applied for things. You didn't demonstrate the need. Okay. The FM Global, they didn't support the project. I wanted to do a training thing to try to bring our training more so they could, easier for the firefighters to learn on their time off, and it didn't work out. So we'll go after that in a different angle. And the Assistant Firefighters Grant, they found that the town's financial position was obviously better than other people applying. It's a competitive grant. It's actually the same grant I put in a year ago and it got awarded, but because of a problem with the DUNS number, we couldn't collect. So I got awarded it last year. I put the same grant in because we couldn't collect it last year because of a DUNS error. I put the same grant in this year and I didn't get it because as the comparables this year, we're in better financial position. It's just the way grants go. Obviously, we're gonna circle the wagons. All those are annual grants. I can tell you, we already have talked, I've talked with the firefighters and the officers. We know we're applying the volunteer fire grant, a new initiative. We have to, obviously, the grants, we have to attack new initiatives. The other thing in looking at grants, because I think the grants really, obviously, one grant can take a lot of a burden off the budget. So there's a grant writing class that's actually being held in Sunderland from a nationwide, grant writing company, not grant writing company, but education. So I'm going to go to that September 23rd and 24th, and hope that we can grasp some stuff that help us get a grant down the road. Fire prevention. I will say that we've accomplished, I feel like I work very closely and work very well with the building inspector and the electrical inspector and the health agent. We spend a lot of time, we move a lot of stuff electronically in terms of documents and reports and permits and stuff like that. We brought a lot of stuff in. You would think that there was really not much fire prevention stuff in Hatfield, but it's actually, that's clearly not the truth. There's a lot of it. And we have stuff that, we have everything from, we have a lot of we have industry, we have permits, we have stuff like that, to construction that's not permitted, to stuff that really needs to be looked at, to the chemicals, to the fertilizer. There's a lot of it, and I will say that I think we're gaining a decent handle on it, and it's very much a collaborative effort between myself and Kyle and Buster. And Charlie, we spend a lot of time in the forest, email, we do a bunch of stuff together. We've been working on vacant properties in town. Vacant properties obviously pose a hazard, some of them. If you had fire, you have exposures, you obviously don't want, we want to prevent fire. And in the end, all of this that we're doing, I think every one of us is very reasonable. You could ask any business owner, any property owner, realtor, we're very reasonable. We're all working towards the same cause, but there's some cases where you have to think about the visitors to town and the citizens of town and safety, and that's why the regulations are there. So I think that's going well. Emergency planning. So as the board has seen, one of the things I've tried to do is to update the select board and keep key figures, Marlene and such, and sometimes Phil, about things in town. We had a fire at school. I update the select board. We see a storm come through, we have some damage. I think it's important to keep you knowledgeable about this and to keep you updated about these things, because at times, sometimes, we start to approach the threshold where we obviously need some interaction, we need maybe some intervention, we need, talk about, a state of emergency and things like that. And I think it's important to have this to keep you up. And so it's actually something that over time I'm really going to try to work on. I think that one of the things that we've talked department heads is about, the infrastructure and message, we should have email groups. And there should be certain groups, certain groups go, and emails go here, others go to other department heads. And I'm trying to develop that with this email system and not utilizing Code Red. We can utilize Code Red for things like this, but Code Red is obviously, it's not necessary to utilize the Code Red mass notification. Even though we could make groups like that, it's easier to use email groups. So I'm trying to work on that. It's definitely something we can improve on. Obviously, I'm going to try to work on that. The infrastructure, so we've talked about infrastructure. I've talked about infrastructure, stuff like, communication, stuff like data and things like that. So one of the steps we've taken across the parking lot, which is the Emergency Operations Center, is also that we've taken some of the computers. Some of the computers are on the server over there and some are not. So if we lose the server here, we have to think about what we lose. How many people can operate, how many computers in town can operate without the server? I can tell you that I've set it up over there that I can operate my entire operation without the server. I can actually take some hard drives out of there and operate their entire fire department, ambulance, emergency management out of the car if I have to for a period of time. And it's because we have to take steps like that. It's one of the things over the years, we've done a lot of good things. We worked on the hazard mitigation plan, we worked on a lot of stuff. We've kind of overlooked our own world here. And so I think it's something that I'm working on over time. Cindy has worked with a little bit. I've worked with the department heads, and we've talked about some different things, about lists of like, hey, what do they think? If we had to leave the building, what would they need? What would the treasurer collector need? What would the clerk need? What's important? What is the key things? Where, and stuff like that. That dovetails right into the fact that is the Emergency Operations Center across the street, and we've never actually all sat there and talked about how it would work. So I will work with, as we get into the winter months, I'll work with Marlene, and we'll find a date so we can bring everybody in and just go over there and talk about how it works, and you can tell me what you would want to see, or you would want to know this. Okay, well then, because we want to set that up so the day we need it, it's a turnkey, and it has everything everyone needs. Aside from that, you know, there's a potential exercise on September 17th that I emailed some of you about. It's a hazmat exercise. It's still coming into play. I did offer to be on the planning committee because hence if it abuts our town, or it's going to be in our town. I figure it would be important that we have a say. It's still undetermined where it's at, whether it's going to come together or not. But it's a Hampshire County Regional Emergency Planning Committee and Franklin County Emergency Planning Committee and the Franklin COG and a number of other groups. Aside from that, so there's that exercise. I talked to you about Berkshire Gas. I passed to Marlene a intercept.
Right, and what I thought I was looking at was that intercept agreement, but it's not, it's something else for
Okay.
a future meeting.
Right, so the intercept
so
agreement.
I know the original is in the
Yeah,
signature
and we can
folder.
talk, yeah, so there's two things that I want to quickly, that are mutual aid type things. So the intercept agreement, we have an intercept agreement with Northampton Fire, we've had it for years. They come, they get on our ambulance, we all transport together. We're the billing agent, we pay them. We used to pay them $275. They did two things that happened. One, they changed their name. They want, instead of be the Northampton Fire Department, they want to be called Northampton Fire Rescue. I don't know. And they upped their fee to $300. It's the same document
Okay.
with a name change and a rate change. That's all
I
it is.
didn't realize it was a rate change.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so that is all that is. I do also need to come back to you another time, the Williamsburg agreement. So we have a Williamsburg agreement for the jog and Cole Road and some other property over there, and just Mountain, that's wildfire area. It was last updated in 1995. And so I've spoken to the fire chief over there, and I'm going to rewrite the agreement. It just kept hitting the back burner on my desk, but it's on the top of the pile now. And so I will rewrite that, and I will forward that through to you, and we will just rewrite it. And what it basically says is that they do primary response for fire calls on that side of the mountain. If it's a simple call, then we send a fire officer, just take a report, because we are by regulatory, we have to take the report, it's in Hatfield. If it's actually a fire, a chimney fire, a brush fire, a house fire, we actually will send our apparatus around to that side of the mountain and assist as we would in Hatfield. I've spoken with Chief Nichols in Northampton about this, because obviously we've traveled to Northampton to get there. Everyone's on board with it. I just have to rewrite it and update it from 1995. So there's some
Well, it's
terminology.
interesting you say 95, because I recall there is something on file here, but I thought it was more recent than,
Hey, I would be more than
Yeah,
happy
in
if
the
it would be more
early-
recent. But either way, there's definitely,
in like 2003 or 4.
I don't know, no one, the town of Williamsburg could only come up with something from
All right,
95.
I'm gonna, I'll
And I
check
could
the
come up
file,
with nothing newer.
see,
Good.
there is something.
We have questions about any of this, or have you?
I only have one other thing. One other thing is that, and I've spoken with Marlene about this, is that have you talked to Alan Seawald, Marlene?
I have not. I have not
Obviously,
talked to
there
him
is
yet.
some money remains from the building fund across the parking lot. There's still some work that needs to be done over there, including some, I would say, touch-ups of the initial work that needs to happen. I've worked and discussing this with Marlene, she's gotta chase down to Attorney Seawald. Obviously, the goal is, and I've actually talked with Phil about this, is that it's foolish for us to spend operating funds right now making the repairs over there out of an operating budget when there's actually a budget, an account that sits there. So we have very much an understanding that I understand the work's not getting done right now, and Phil's not expending operating funds out of his budget on that, and we're obviously hopes that we can pay it out of that remaining amount. And then once we can get at that funds, we can clear all that stuff up, and then we can clear up that account.
What's holding up access to the account? I mean, the facility was completed,
We need
I
to,
don't.
we need to
Actually,
finalize
years
that.
ago,
We need to close on
and
it.
there's a retainage for work to be done that was never done, but there's dollars there,
Correct, that
Yes.
is right.
so why don't we
That is
spend those
right.
dollars to do that work?
Well, we need to do it legally, and
Yes.
that's the
It's
reason why
little things.
I
Yeah.
need to consult with the attorney that had started, that
Yes,
had
Seawald.
been brought into this.
Right.
The last communication I saw was he had sent a letter to the contractor and then
They
it
ignored
dropped
it
there.
probably,
Right,
as they have everything else.
right.
Okay.
But it is in the works.
No, it's,
Well,
yeah, no,
there's
it is.
really
We've all-
nothing in the works
No,
right
well,
now.
right, but
I need
we
to
just need to eventually
expedite
get
it.
there.
I need to
We
expedite
just need to get there so we
Okay.
can.
I
Well,
need
that's
to
better
get
than
on
nothing
that.
at all.
On the agreement with Williamsburg,
Yes, sir.
is that solely fire and ambulance? Or?
Yes, solely fire and ambulance.
I say that because
I have
we
nothing to do with the
we have a
police.
piece with DPW.
Oh,
For example, they're plowing.
yeah. No, mine is
area.
solely fire. Actually, it's solely
By
fire.
the reservoir.
My ambulance
They're-
agreement's with somebody else, because Williamsburg Fire does not do the ambulance.
Okay, I'm just wondering if we should incorporate some of the things we have with DPW
I-
for emergency plowing and that kind of stuff.
For the sake of the fact that every time names change, people want to change documents, I would probably encourage keeping them separately.
All right,
We could review them all at the same time. I think that would be fine, but I would make 3, 4 pieces of paper separate.
that makes excellent sense.
Yeah,
Review them
that
all.
would be fine, but I would not put
Yeah.
DPW, fire, ambulance in the same form, because then when somebody leaves,
Yeah.
then you're stuck.
What do you consider the 3 most critical issues facing our fire department?
Well, we always face personnel issues,
Personnel,
in terms of, not, we have great people, but the staffing, we always face staffing. It's, I could take 2 new people every year, and we have gotten some wonderful new people. Really have added some wonderful new people in the last year and a half. Staffing's probably number 1.
Excuse me.
I think that really lies it. It's all about staffing in the end. It's all about people. We do well with equipment. We work well maintained. We do we get the training done. Morale is good.
Okay.
In terms of working with the departments, Adam, the mechanic, is wonderful. It's things go very well. So prevention is a lot. Fire prevention has become a lot. We really have, there's more than a handful of cases in town of things that were just done. And we're working through them and working with them.
Okay, on emergency planning, you touched on a couple things here. For example, relocation of this activity somewhere, emergency relocation of all the offices. Are you working at all with the town clerk with respect to records?
We've talked about this.
Emergency
I
relocation
spoke with
of
the clerk
records?
about it. We spoke at a department heads meeting once where I brought it up and everyone kinda, brought it under the radar. And we've talked about it once and we obviously, we all agreed that we would come back and we would talk about it again. Because there are needs. Everyone,
records,
yes.
yeah.
Everyone has needs. Public records
That's
has
going to be
needs.
ongoing for a
The
little
collector
while.
has needs but we should have, we should know what those are. So if something comes arise, then we know what, we should be able to open a book and say, this is what everyone's needs are. We need trucks to move these records here, and.
There should be a destination of where they go.
Well, yes, exactly. So it's like our own little, there's obviously, we have these great emergency plans for every disaster that the state wants to have one for. We have our hazard mitigation, but this will have, we're trying to develop something that's right in here special for us. So,
Well, including, though, use of the cloud for,
yeah. The
To
cloud's
get
is a
off
strong
of-
discussion.
Well,
And we've
yeah.
had IT discussions, and that's, I think, for another IT discussions, but the cloud is a very, it's something to discuss with our IT.
it's backup.
It
it's-
is.
It's there in terms of disaster.
There's people who think it's wonderful, and then there's people
Yeah.
who have reservations.
I
about
utilize
it.
the cloud for some stuff. I have some stuff in the cloud as duplicate. Yeah.
But it has been a discussion.
So do we have, let me put it more bluntly, do we have a plan at all right now for emergency relocation?
No. But we should. And that's why I,
This place could burn down tomorrow, heaven forbid.
Yes.
And,
so, that is why it's made its way
Okay.
towards top of the list
Now,
here.
for natural hazards, I know we
Our our SEMP plan,
There's still some edits to be done in that mitigation plan, I hope.
yep,
But beyond that,
yeah,
I think your notion here of having an exercise is on the
the
mark,
tabletop, yep,
a table, any
yeah,
kind.
yeah.
Do we have the GIS tools in place for monitoring and projecting?
So we can do a lot of that across, with any projector on any computer, we can do a lot of that.
I mean,
But-
but do we have, for example, I mean, we know what the main hazards are, pretty much. We know where the flooding potentially can
Right.
be. I mean, do we have the GIS materials there in place so that, bring up that shot of Cow
Yes.
Bridge area or
We could do
whatever?
that. How, depending on how live the photos are, would be one of those things. Would it be a live photo or a straight street map versus a map with all the trees and streams and water. So, but we can bring up various maps. We can move maps, we can print maps, we can draw on maps.
So we have the digital tools to be able to monitor.
You could do it. It's a setup. It's getting it set, getting things up, people.
Well, along the same line, what kind of cooperation or collaborative activity do you have going with the police? For example, do you have, in this emergency planning, incorporated the needs of the police department? For example, do you have the building plans, like for the schools? So if there's a hostage situation or something, somebody's got the layout of the building.
I
and
don't.
where.
I have maps of the schools, but in terms of the police and their plans and that stuff,
So
no.
you're separate? That's.
Well, no, we communicate, but the police actually, the school stuff works in conjunction with the police and the state police. And we support their operation. And we've had meetings about that. And then we have maps of the schools, there's no question about that, but
For the room layouts and where things are, and that type of thing? Okay.
as best you can.
Yeah, I guess just to follow up with that or go along with that, I would think that part of the conversation you're going to have going forward, when we're talking about what are we going to do if this building or any other building is going to incorporate all the various
Yeah.
emergency services and probably the schools for that matter because of the size, as far as if building A, something happened to it, what becomes the next building?
We
to-
did
to
speak
go
with the
to,
schools, the
everyone
police
knows.
representative and I
Yeah.
spoke with the
So-
schools about relocation. There's gonna be an exercise again this year. We had
So I
one a
think
couple
that's
of years
great.
ago. And there will be an exercise in relocation this year with the schools.
I think it's a great idea, Stephen, moving forward.
So,
Yeah, and not only a good idea, but important.
it's important.
You
No, it's
gotta
important. We have
You've
to
got to have a plan.
We have to be able to hold our
You
infrastructure.
got to have something, you can always tweak it, but you have to
Right.
have something to start with, right?
So-
That's the
Yep.
key. Yeah.
Anything else, Steve?
No, I have nothing else. Any
Thank you.
questions?
Questions?
No, I don't have.
Just one thing I wanted to mention, Stephen, the state had a conference call with municipalities regarding the drought.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, water.
You and Bill participated.
Water, so yes.
Sat in on.
Water, it's funny, because I would have sent an email about water, and it's one of those things, but in fact, after taking in all the information, I was like, there's no need for water discussion. So we worked with, we
I
did listen.
just thought I'd mention.
No,
that.
it
You
is,
did-
it
you
was
did
written down too.
Sit in on that.
We did, so we listened to the conference call from MEMA concerning the drought, and obviously, there's communities in much worse shape than us. I spoke with Tony from the water department and Phil the other day, and we implemented a voluntary water ban some time ago. We did utilize Code Red, we got the message out, and it's been very successful. And Tony feels we were in very good position. Obviously, if we had a fire, we're gonna flow considerable amounts of water. Tony just wants a phone call, and he believes he can handle it. At the same time, we have two separate run cards for building fires, in terms of resources. I have an in-water district, an out-of-water district, places where either the hydrants are bad, or there are no hydrants, and the person in charge, or they tell the dispatcher, I want resource from this card or this card, and we can bring 6, 8, 10 tankers for water to put out a fire, obviously not drinkable, but to put out a fire. So emergency-wise, we have a lot of resources available. and there's plans in place for that. But water-wise, it seems like we are in good shape with the current voluntary.
That is still in effect?
Yes, and it's successful, and it should maintain that way. If people continue to do what they're doing, we're in okay shape. We're in better shape than other communities. Credit to Phil and Tony and such.
You mentioned, help me with, what is a bad hydrant?
A hydrant that doesn't give, a small hydrant, a hydrant on a 6-inch line, hydrant on a 4-inch line. A hydrant's not gonna give me the adequate water that I want.
Okay, the hydrant itself is.
No, the hydrant
functional.
itself is good. The hydrants are good. There's a couple of
Yeah,
smaller
it's
hydrants
just
in town.
the
And there's a
stream
few
of
dead end
pressure.
yeah. It's just pressure wise, yes, pressure and volume. And if we feel we need more pressure and volume, Linseed Hill, the
Yeah.
way elevation and stuff, we needed more pressure and volume. We truck water in, we put it in a tank, we just draft it out of the tank and we spray it.
Okay.
Excellent. Questions? No?
You
All right.
you have unlimited opportunities.
Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just for the board's action, that intercept agreement is in the signature folder. That's with the city of Northampton.
Motion to approve the intercept agreement as
It's right there.
presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, done. I think that takes care of that, the signatures and stuff and that.
I think there's some other items in there for
I
later.
had given, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'll pass it down when we
Okay.
get to it.
Thank you. All right, the board will be going into executive session. We expect that it won't be a very long session. The motion, under the motion as follows, and this was developed by Marlene in conjunction with help from town council, is that correct?
Well, he concurred with me.
Yeah, he
that this-
concurred with you.
He concurred with me
Okay,
that
so
this
there's no
is,
question about
You want me to
the,
make the motion? Pat?
please, if you would.
To convene an executive session by a roll call vote for the purpose of discussing the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health, rather than professional competence of an individual, and returning to open session.
Boyle, aye.
Moriarty, aye.
Aye. Unanimous.
We'll be back.
Okay, we should be back hopefully shortly. Yep.
We're back.
Okay.
Move to approve a one-day entertainment license for Grill and Chill, 127 Elm Street, for a function on 27 August from 12:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't know how they can read my writing. Oh, well. Okay,
To the
we're good
minutes.
there.
Yep.
Okay, and now we shall move onto the regular agenda. There we go. Okay, I'm good.
Minutes.
Yep, all righty.
Motion to approve Board of Selectmen minutes of 12 July as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to approve Board of Selectmen minutes of 28 July as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to approve minutes of Board of Selectmen meeting 2 August, subject to one change. That is adding the diagram that's cited to the copy of the minutes.
All in favor?
I'll second Jeff's
Second.
motion.
All
Yep.
all in
Yep.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're good on the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Essentially, yep, okay, very good. Okay, Stephen is all set, so the fire department is done. All right, cross that off.
Grill and Chill's all set?
Okay, we've got a request from, application for the.
We just-
We're all set on
Done.
that, okay.
All right.
All
I
right,
think it's up to Phil
so,
now.
It's probably one
Sign
of
the
the,
official one, Pat. That's just the copy.
the brown one
I
is
have the
in
original
there,
one here.
in
Got
the
it?
Yep, we're
signature.
good.
okay,
Yep.
all right.
Yep.
And we're all set there. Okay, anything else? All righty?
Moving on to DPW.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Phil?
The first topic I probably have an older agenda, I don't know if it was changed, but the water and sewer rates update. We did implement them, and I talked to Laura Lee the other day about it. We are going to put them in place for the next billing cycle. We'll be reading the meters in the middle of September. So the new rate will be on there.
Okay. What percentage is the increase?
5%.
5%. Okay. All righty.
The North Street Sewer Project update, we have the contracts here in front of us that need signatures. So once they are signed officially, then the clock starts ticking on the completion date. They're planning on being here the second week of September, earlier if possible. It's a 6-day construction, they figure, and then right after that, we'll be reclaiming the road and paving it. So
Well,
this,
just 6 days for the infrastructure, really?
that's what they're saying, yeah.
Wow.
The material's ordered, so they're ready to go. It's just a matter of mobilizing here with their crew, so that's what they're figuring. It's gonna be a 6-day construction. So weather permitting, we'll say it's gonna be 10 days.
We don't have the contract.
Right here, the contracts are
Right
here. For your
Yes.
signatures, they're all flagged.
I'm sure
That you need
everybody
to
got a
sign.
copy.
We'll insert the dates. You don't need to worry about the dates.
Yeah, just the
You
signatures.
didn't read it yet, Jeff?
Can we
I do read
approve
contracts.
to sign, and that can be done at our discretion tomorrow? Or do you want that done tonight?
Well, the contract
Collectively.
was awarded on
Yeah, I
July 12th.
Yes.
Right.
So all you're doing is
So we're just, there's no more motion to approve or anything. We've already approved it.
correct.
Okay, got
Right,
it.
it's the signing of the documents.
Fine.
So that can be done
Right after the
tomorrow,
meeting
or
or-
after the
Right after
meeting
the meeting
tonight?
tonight.
Tonight or tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
As well, okay. Let's move on.
And the Mass Works grant application update, I received the information today, late morning, and you have it in front of you. I'll just go through it quick from the cover sheet from the original email.
I have two. Here, you might have.
There
it.
there are
you.
two
Probably
different
got
ones.
mine.
Two different ones.
There's two different,
Then I have to have it, I must have it.
You've
here
got it in
somewhere.
So what we're looking to do for the Mass Works projects this round is the water and sewer improvements from I-91 north to the Whately line. The estimated project cost is $5.2 million. That's what the grant's going in for. This will include let me say, we phase it into 3 phases. So this is going to be almost like into the phase 3 part of this.
right?
Because the other part that's on here, the West Street at the intersection of Chestnut Street, the water and sewer improvements south of Rocks Road, and the estimated cost is 1.92. So south from Rocks Road to where
Linseed Rocks.
Church Street area,
Yeah.
right in there, the Church Street area. And the other side, the first part of this grant application, the water and sewer, I-91 north to the Whately line, is going to, we redid it in order to catch the 5 colleges, the 5-college library annex, because they're a strong supporter of this. So we rewrote this because the last time it stopped short of 91 crossing. Now we're going to try to get over to 91 bridge to do that, for that purpose, because there's some other interests going on in that area, so. And the last thing will be, we're gonna resubmit what we had last year as the water main improvements to cross the Mill River. The estimated cost is the $640,000 to build a separate structure to carry that water main over the Mill River to Gore Avenue.
This is from
From
Brockway
Brockway and
Smith, the railroad, up to the
Yes.
top of the hill, out of the dingle.
So the application has to be in by what date, Marlene?
September 9th.
September 9th,
Is
so
the-
it's
is
it's
the
a short
applicant-
window.
They're accepting it between August 2nd and September 9th.
Yeah, so
It's
we're
all
ready,
online.
we're ready to go with the application if that's the way the board wants to move.
Yeah,
Bill, is the 640 what we're requesting?
Yes.
Okay. thought so.
And that's coming under the small town grants,
Okay.
because
We already used some of that, so there's a
Right.
lid on how much we had
yeah,
available.
we can only use $1 million under that program in 3 years, and we used the 400,000 for the sidewalks.
Okay.
I only had two suggested changes to the wording on these two. One, there's a comment in here about, in both of them, about expedited permitting, and I just wanted to make, it was accurate in what it said, in that, yes, the town adopted 43D in 2014, but the fact is, we have to re-adopt it. So I just wanted to be straight with that, and I provided some language that clarified that. And then, in the second paragraph of the narrative, I thought it would be very helpful to add, it's in both of them, a comment about the railroad. I mean, it talks about easy access to 91 and the fact that we have a Route 91 infrastructure already in place. We have the Route 5 and 10 infrastructure already in place. We also have the railroad infrastructure already in place, and improvements are being made to that. So any development that's a consequence of these water and sewer improvements, the fact is, it's not going to require new roads. We already got 5 and 10, we already got 91.
Yeah, right.
We even have a rail, so it's going to minimize the impact in the environment there, impact on energy, all that kind of stuff. So I just added some words
Okay. So
to incorporate those thoughts. I move to approve the submission of all three
Okay.
as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
And Mike.
Yeah, get those in.
Okay, you want
They
me
will
to
be
pass them down to
submitted.
Marlene, or you want to give them to her?
She's got 'em.
She's got them already?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, very good.
Send her email.
Okay. Anything else, Phil?
The only other thing is that we received a letter from Mass DOT, and they're informing us that the Project Review Committee has approved the project of resurfacing. They're going to resurface pending funding from 350 feet north of Church Avenue to the Whately Town line on 5 and 10. So
Double Ds to the Whately line, essentially.
soon as the funding is approved,
Very good, sir. Very big
Now,
stretch.
that's not going to happen anytime quickly. It
Right.
hasn't.
it
It'll
has to
come
go
through the
before.
MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. I represent Hatfield there and others. But
And with
we'll be
their-
very supportive.
With their blessings, hopefully it'll get funded.
Yeah, I think it's important to emphasize as well that the money figures that we're throwing out, not throwing out here, but putting out here in discussion, we're talking about funding from other sources, not
Correct.
from internal.
Yes,
Correct.
yes, all grant money.
Not increase in taxes or that type of thing.
No, it's all grant money.
If everything falls into place.
Right.
That's a big if everything falls into place.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully one of the three will.
Well, maybe we'll get lucky and the three will go. Who knows? But if you don't ask,
Yep.
you don't file, then you can kiss it goodbye.
That's right.
All righty? Okay, Marlene, please.
Okay. Okay, we took care of that license. First item, I just wanted to update, and you may already know, the governor approved the fiscal year 17 budget, and state receipts for Hatfield, there's an additional $84,039. And state charges, less $10,481. So not too bad for Hatfield. Retail license changes are coming. Key and I attended a seminar put on by the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission last week, and they are moving to an online licensing system, which will ultimately affect how liquor license, retail licenses are processed. There are 8 communities that have volunteered. These are primarily cities in the eastern part of the state. And the reason for that is they have a greater number of licenses. So if there's a glitch, a problem, chances are, it'll show up with one of those cities. Communities as part of the state don't have as many licenses. And so they're in the pilot program stages. But next spring, 2017, everybody will be filing electronically. However, the communities that will still be working with the paper form, that is going to change. That will still be done electronically. We can, if someone wants to apply for a license, they will submit it to ABCC. ABCC will submit it to notify us. Then they will send us a link. We'll access that application. We will print it out. Selectmen will still have a hearing. What we return to ABCC will not include the certified green cards, the public hearing notice. Those questions will appear on that form, and actually I think you have a copy of that form in your packet. So the next time, you really won't see much of a difference. It'll be between Key and I, when we complete it electronically. We'll still advertise, we'll still go through the hearing process. It's just how it's filed will be done electronically.
Okay.
Just a couple of questions. One of the things talks about they're going to check on tax payments electronically. Will that include local taxes that are due?
Well, that's our job to check the local side. I typically
Okay.
will check with the treasurer's
That's
office
what I
to
mean.
see if
I see
anybody's in arrears.
they're saying they're just going to check electronic. I'm assuming that's state and federal or whatever, but not.
No, it's state. The local side, I follow up with the
So
treasurer to
that's
see
still,
if there's,
that's still ours to follow up with.
yes.
And then the other, is this going to present a time issue for us? If you look on step 1, looking at the processing time.
Step 1 of the application?
Yeah, if you look, right here, click, okay, application for retail
Oh,
alcoholic
okay.
beverage license. Go down to step 1, middle of the page. You submit your application, required by law to note the date and hour your application is filed. That they must publish an advertisement noticing a public hearing on your application
Correct.
within 10 days of application being filed. Then no sooner than 10 days after advertising the hearing will be held. So who is going to be publishing the notice of the hearing?
It's the applicant's responsibility to, the town has done it in the past.
I know, in the past.
The applicant is responsible for the expense of publishing the legal notice. And Key, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what we do is have them take the legal notice to the local newspaper, and they bring it and publish it. They pay for it at that time.
Okay, so I guess I'm only concerned that we have some control over the date, because it says no sooner than 10 days after advertising.
Right.
That the hearing must be
And that's all
held.
explained to the applicant.
So he or she needs to do that in conjunction with a meeting that we're going
That
to...
is correct.
Okay.
That is
all right.
correct.
Is there, excuse me, I know you and Key attended the training, but is there training or some sort of online information other than something like this for the actual applicants for the license?
There are instructions on the ABCC's website. I went through it, and it's very similar to the current application.
Except it's online, basically.
It's online.
It must be mostly the same
Right.
information. So if somebody
Right.
came into us for a license, we'll just turn around and say, you need to follow these guidelines or instructions? I mean, how are we
Actually,
going to do
Key and
it
I have
going
talked
forward?
about posting that information on the town's website.
Okay.
If somebody wants to, just, what do I need to do
Yeah,
if I'm
well,
interested in the license?
It's fine,
and-
they
them
told
a
us,
link.
and that's important, but the people actually applying for the licenses need to know that, the format. going forward?
They will, and that's something we can, how they need to apply. Yes, that's something we can post on the town's website. Most people will either call or stop in and inquire.
Right, okay.
Is the current application this long?
It is. Oh, the existing application, it's 5 pages? The current application, is that 5 pages?
I thought it was,
Not the, is it longer?
oh, okay.
Wow.
All right.
And these are for new, right? They don't have to go through all this to renew as well, do they?
The renewal process,
It'd be a little different, right?
well,
Yeah.
right.
But
Everything will
but
be
probably less
electronically.
involved, I guess is my question. I mean, this looks like it's a new, from a information.
Right,
at
they
the
have
ABCC.
revamped
Yeah,
that
okay,
application.
okay. Thanks, that's all I had.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Key, I'm just thinking for the renewal process this year, though, they'll still send us the paper renewals? For the renewal, I'm trying to recall if that's.
There was
Okay.
something about October 2016 in here, when I zipped through it. We accept all new applications coming to your municipality to use this application. We will stop accepting the old application on October 30th, so just the new forms at least, but.
The renewal process
Yeah.
is the month of November.
Yeah,
And so with the board, approving the renewals, that won't change or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, notice of property foreclosure 61A. This does not require a right of first refusal, and it just requires the applicant to notify the town. The Board of Assessors and the Treasurer's Office have received the same notice, so it's just simply a record to the Board of Selectmen of notice. In your packet, you have an email that I received from Kathleen Tobin. She's a resident in town, and she is reaching out to the community to ask for support from the Board of Selectmen and the Police Department to put blue ribbons around poles or trees along private way, or yes, a right-of-way, I should say. And I have talked with the police chief about this. He supports this project and said that, the police department would get involved with it. And
I'm sorry, would you clarify, on public way or private way?
not on private property, a right-of-way,
Public
or
way.
public town properties.
How can I say it?
It's an expression of supporting the law enforcement.
It is, and
And-
this is one of these things where no good deed goes unpunished. And I think we need to think about the precedent, and then are we going to be prepared to put up below that Black Lives Matter? Are we going to put up below that All Lives Matter? Are we going to, it's not that this board or anyone in this town disagrees with support to our emergency service personnel, but it's turned into a political chaos. In taking one position, you're perceived as being against someone else's position. And I'm just not sure we want to get in that mix. I think we need to think very carefully about the precedent you're setting here. On its face, it sounds great, fine, yes, we support our police, but is that now perceived as a different view about some of these other?
Well, you could open it up
Well,
right
how do you
for
pick and
other-
choose?
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
It's
how-
either, unfortunately, I think it's one of those, it's all or none, is
Yeah,
my
yeah.
personal opinion, and
Wanna be
it's not for lack of
consistent.
support, but I totally agree with Jeff. I think that this campaign to do this, if there's a way that Kathy has a way of, and the other folks interested and part of that organization can reach out publicly so people can do it on their own private property if they want to be part of it that way. Similar to the yellow ribbons years ago, you know. And I agree, and how is it, how is it rolled out? Who sort of keeps track of where they are? You know, but I agree with Jeff. I think the biggest thing is, and it's certainly not for supporting the police and many other organizations for that matter, but it's just, it opens the door to all sorts of great causes that are out there. And
My thought was individuals, if they,
Oh,
they
yeah.
wish to do that on their own property.
Certainly, that's.
Absolutely.
Their-
Show, if
Absolutely.
they want to show support in that way.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
I'd like to postpone a decision on this until our next meeting. I want some time to think about it. It's the first time I've seen this. Okay? Is that acceptable? All righty.
The next item, just for informational purposes, is the municipal modernization bill that the governor recently signed. And there's quite a few changes that will affect the town. And the public records request is one. The town clerk and I, in conjunction with the other department heads, have been discussing it at department head meetings. And town clerk and I, there's seminars that each of us are going to be, meetings that we have on our calendar, and that is a topic for discussion. So it'll be interesting to talk with other communities to see, you know, what they're implementing. It's going to be more involved, and, you know, you have to assign one or two people to handle the public records request. They would distribute it to the appropriate office, board, or committee. At the same time, that office needs to track the public records request, and then the person who receives it and provides the documents needs to provide a copy to the office that's going to, who's receiving the record initially. So it's going to involve more time. And so we need to come up with a plan. We certainly don't want to wait until January 1st when this goes into effect. I'll report back on that.
So is the town clerk coming in with a proposal?
Well, it's sort of a joint venture.
Well, I'm just saying that because town clerk is responsible for our public records.
Yes, and
Okay.
you and I had discussed that office is part-time. So that is a concern, that her office may not be open
Yes,
when someone comes in with a public records request.
be interesting to hear how she plans to deal with it.
Well, I will report back on that again. Other items going forward, I haven't listed everything. It's a very thick bill, and I have been reviewing it, and there are items that I'd like to review with the town accountant and the treasurer that will, you know, affect how we handle finances. But just one item I wanted to, actually a couple, snow and ice removal. It eliminates the prior approval for deficit spending by the select board, replacing that language with the chief administrative, or exec, I'm sorry, that should be no, it is administrative officer. One document says chief administrative officer, and then chief administrative officers. So, I mean, in this case, it would be the Board of Selectmen, as it has been. But in some towns, it could be the town manager or whatever other official they have. Year-end transfers, as you know, that's something we've taken up every year with the Finance Committee, and there has been the limit of either 3% or $5,000 of the budget that you're transferring from. They have removed that limit, that cap.
Is it still a two-step where we recommend and we're still subject to Finance Committee's approval?
it's still the Selectmen and Finance Committee voting to approve those
Okay.
transfers. Yes. So periodically at meetings, I'm going to continue to address items that affect the town, just to make sure that you're brought up to speed. And anytime you're interested in looking at this, or you'd like a copy of it, I'll be glad to make one
Yeah.
for you. I figured you might.
Wish I had it
But
at the
you might.
beach.
Moving on to continued old business. I talked with the architect the other day who is developing the plans for the handicap accessibility. And as you know, we've had a meeting with the Council on Aging, and we're looking at expanding the kitchen. He is finalizing that design.
Let's
And-
be careful. We're not, the board has not even seen it. I mean,
Oh,
we're
correct.
we're asking him to address concerns raised by the COA in terms of what it might look like in terms of a design and what that would cost.
Right.
And then we'll
It's a
assess that.
proposed plan.
Right.
So I have scheduled a meeting next week to meet with him, a preliminary meeting, and then I'd like to schedule a final meeting with the Council on Aging, anybody from the public, for September 13th. If we can do a daytime meeting, that would be great. I know it's difficult for you, Brian. So, we can be flexible, daytime, evening, whatever you'd like.
Well, whatever gets the most people there so they can see
Yeah.
what the proposals are.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
That's the important.
In your packet is a draft copy of the report to the Department of Public Safety Architectural Access Board as part of their decision that they rendered in 2013. We're required to file an annual report due by September 1st.
Motion to approve the progress report 3 to the Architectural Access Board, subject to entering the funding number on the
Yeah, I need to,
next to the
yes.
last page.
That's- yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thanks for putting it together.
As always.
Next item, Center School, sale and redevelopment. The bid opening is Monday. Bids are due at 2 o'clock. The bid opening is at 2:30. And I've proposed these dates in accordance with the dates that we did publish in the RFP. I'd like to be able to, I'd like the Board of Selectmen to select the semifinalists after, we've reviewed. I'm going to open the bids and we'll record them, and then we will take them under advisement. So there won't be any decision made that day, of course. And then copies of the proposals will be made available for the Board of Selectmen.
Well, yeah, that'll be the first time we'll have an
Correct,
opportunity to
yeah,
read
that's right.
the information.
Yeah. So if the board is in agreement, if we can select the semifinalists at our September 13th meeting.
Is that a public meeting kind of activity? I mean, aren't we sitting there scoring the records or the proposals?
I thought that was going to be done
Well,
prior to.
that's my understanding, that once we've received them, opened them, we'll record them, and then I will go through them and score them to make sure that they have,
Then we'll work from there.
under the terms of the
Responsible,
RFP, right. And then I'll give that to each of you to review. I mean, we can sit down, I can schedule a meeting with just the board to sit down and review them prior to September 13th.
well, I'm just saying,
Do we wanna
I
do
suggest
that?
we should have a session, just
Like a working session.
a working session where we just go over the
Mm-hmm.
things and
And then,
agree
Have some
that this is
conversation.
responsive, this is
and
responsible.
then be prepared on the 13th
Yeah.
to make a decision.
But that working session is an open session.
I don't know.
I'll check on that.
Yeah, I
I'll check on that.
think we need
With
to check on
RFPs, I
that.
don't believe it is an open
Yeah,
session.
I don't know, but
Yeah, I'm
I
going to
don't
check
think
on
we
it.
can automatically rule it out want to make sure
Okay.
that the process that's in
Yeah.
place
We
is.
follow the right.
Exactly.
We'll do it
'Cause
right.
I don't want to go back and have to revisit this.
All right, so we'll have to look at another date before the 13th. Okay.
But, so we could then, though, have that session prior to, just as a working session. But then on the 13th, we could act on it
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
in our meeting. Okay.
That's fine.
And
I
interviews?
think the bottom line is we've taken due diligence in terms
Oh, yeah.
of dealing with the whole process, that's all. So there's no question.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we need to have some discussion
Yeah.
and talk about
And
that.
it's an open meeting, anybody, will it be posted? Am I correct?
Oh, yes, it'll be a
Yeah,
posted meeting.
obviously, so
Yes,
that's fine.
yeah.
Okay, so, but for scheduling purposes, we are going to meet, we are going to select we will have a selectmen's meeting on the 13th. And
Correct.
at that meeting, we will finally act. Prior to that,
We need to schedule a meeting prior to
we
the
need
13th.
just a working session at some convenient date. And then we will need to establish a time on the 26th, as Marlene's proposed, to interview any semifinalists. So we need the date before the 13th and a time on the 26th. Does anyone,
But again, I'm thinking here now.
These are tentative.
We've got 3 dates. Those 3 dates are open meetings.
Marlene's going to check on the one where we review the,
Right, I'm going to
Contract proposals.
research. that. I'm going
Two
to
are
just
for
check.
sure.
Right,
Yeah,
the
two of them.
13th and the 26th,
Right. So it's the only,
Are public
the
meetings.
other one is
the
you're going to
meeting
check
prior
on.
to the 13th, I'm
Fine.
checking on.
And if it can be in closed session, then that's, so be it.
whatever it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. So we could look at meeting early evening, before then. You can check your calendars and let me know if there's dates that, I'll be in touch with you about it.
Yeah, for me,
Date.
it's whatever works for the,
I'm okay that week of after the 13th, or let's see. We want it before the 13th, so 12th would be okay, or the 9th?
what works for you,
Thanks.
Brian?
Anything is, they're all the same. So, really, it doesn't. So we'd be looking at so September 9th, we said, for another reason, was a Friday.
The school committee going to be meeting
No,
anytime soon?
no.
Okay,
We just had a meeting the other night. We do have one in September, but I don't think there's a conflict.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could,
Any
I
night?
think I'd rather meet, to be honest with you guys, the week prior to the
Yeah. Right.
13th. Rather than
Second-
just in case the day
No,
before,
agreed.
in case something,
Agreed. Agreed.
so. The 6th, the 7th, the 8th, right? That's a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
How about 7th?
That's
Yeah, the
fine.
holiday
That's a
weekend.
Wednesday.
Yeah,
So
Wednesday?
that's fine.
That's fine.
Fine with
Seven?
me.
It's after the holiday, yeah, that's.
After the holiday.
Yeah, 7th.
Yep,
The 7th, I don't care what time.
Okay,
me either.
I do it at,
I can imagine.
you want to do it at 5? Or
You want to do it at 12 o'clock?
12,
I can't imagine we're going to
Well,
have
why
that
don't,
many.
why don't we do this? Why don't we pick the day?
Yeah,
Sure.
And why
and
don't
then
we
we'll
see how
How
many,
many,
I mean,
Yeah,
because we,
okay.
how many proposals we receive,
Yeah.
and then, that will, then I
maybe
can
determine
judge
how long
just
we
how much
think
time we
that-
need.
Yeah.
okay.
If that's
Fair enough.
agreeable to
fine.
Pat and
That's fair.
Jeff. Okay.
Makes perfect sense. We
Okay.
know what we're dealing with then.
Wednesday, September 7th, right?
Okay. And regarding center school.
We'll come back with the time on that. But then on the
Yeah,
26th,
that's a Monday.
yeah.
Well, that'd probably be a
let's-
staggered time. I mean, if that's to interview the semifinalists, it
That's
probably
correct.
have to be a 6, a 7, however we're going
So
to.
you want to try and do it in the evenings?
I don't have a preference, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, I'd prefer evenings if possible, but I think part of that might depend on the schedules of the finalists too. I mean, I know we try to pick the times, but,
You're really the driver here, because Pat and I are more flexible.
all right, you want to just wait on that as well then,
And
as
see
far as
just
which,
how many-
the time?
Okay.
How many
Okay.
responses we get, sure.
And those we're going to interview need to accommodate their schedule to our need
Yeah.
in terms of timing. I've never heard of anything contrary to
Well,
that.
I think that is normally what happens.
Yeah.
We never know if someone's
I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty about it, but that's the reality of it.
I agree, but
Okay,
we
good.
also try to be a little flexible depending on the circumstances.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
So, yeah.
with your discretion, Marlene.
That's good.
Okay, all right.
The next project for the center school is to put the remediation out to bid, and I expect to be doing that next week. So we're still looking at that project. Whose phone is that?
Not my phone, I know that.
Remediation during the month of October. And it's pretty reasonable to think that we can get that done.
Okay, but I've asked this 100 times, so it's clear for everybody. Are we able to put a thing in there so that if there's no, in that one contract, we can also do the demolition as a,
If we needed to, right, as an alternate.
As an
As
alternate.
an alternate.
so that one contract, so we're not going out with it again.
Right.
We'll
So we
have
don't
the
have
one
to, right. It
as
would
an
be a
alternate.
waste of time
If
and
there's
money.
no successful bidder, that's in there, we act on that, we're
Right.
done.
Right.
Great, okay, that's good.
There are some items left over at the school that need to be, there are some valuable items, I should say, over there, probably that are not necessarily valuable, but of interest to the Historical Society and Historical Commission. So we just need to make arrangements to let them in there and remove those items. And then there's some other items in there. I don't know if the other party is interested in taking those out, I mentioned to Phil, or do we just get a dumpster and take it out ourselves and have it
Or
hauled
leave it
away?
there if it's going to come down. Just gets hauled away with the debris. Give them a notice, they need to be removed by X.
Right, give a date that needs to be removed.
Phil mentioned,
it's-
however, one thing that the historical folks were interested in was the plate with the building committee. But he
The
said
names
that's
at the- right.
bolted right through some wall and,
Yeah, it's bolted into the masonry wall. So,
Oh, it is?
yeah. So the only way you can take it off is either when they renovate the building or when they tear it down. I mean, we're gonna have to work with the contractors in both cases.
it's not a simple,
Realize that. Wow.
We'll just make sure
Okay.
that's a known fact for whoever's
Wanna
in
make
there
sure
doing
that it
whatever,
doesn't-
that
yeah.
there's FYI, this is part of the.
did you say you have a letter from?
Yes, I have an email from Kathy Gow.
Okay, so he has something from historical as to things that they're interested in preserving.
She's identified those items that they'd like to
Yeah,
remove.
I mean, that's the only big item.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the pull stations, supposedly you have some folks have interest in those. Fire,
Yeah, the fire department does have some hose over there, maybe?
Yeah, they have some
hose.
things, yeah.
We'll
Okay.
take that out. The remainder of the items is on the back side of my report. Again, looking ahead at scheduling a fall special town meeting. I have been in communication with the town moderator. He will not be available between October 11th and October 18th. I checked with town council regarding his availability. He has an obligation October 24th, which is a town meeting, and if it carries over, it would carry over to the next day, October 25th.
so
He's-
26th?
So he's available after that and through the middle of November. And I've reached out to the school to see if, they have any events going on, and I haven't heard back yet. And checked with John, he'll get back to me regarding his future plans.
Well, and just for clarification, this is again a special town meeting to be held to discuss the renovation
Right.
of Town Hall.
Phase
Just,
2
you know,
renovation.
for those
And-
people that
And,
missed the
and
last.
we were
couple.
confirming Kevin's, the architect's availability,
Yes.
but we hadn't asked for the 26th, so we need to do that. Right?
Right, yes, I need to follow up with him and check on his availability.
So we got
Actually, no, I did send an email to him
Okay.
yesterday about that. I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, but I thought you were talking about the 25th earlier, now you're,
Well, I had said, the middle of October, or no, I said late October to the middle of November.
okay.
And town council had just said that he had a town meeting on October 24th. If it carries over, then he'd have to be there the next day, but after that, he was okay.
I think that the three of us still need to, I would agree we need a special town meeting. And however, I personally feel it should be after the election, since we need both the question to pass at the ballot box by a simple majority, and then to have it pass at town meeting. This is about the funding for this, for the project. And then that would have to pass at town meeting. So I'm still under the belief that at the election is going to give the momentum to then for a town meeting to pass at the ballot box by a simple majority, and then have the momentum to carry us forward in a special town meeting where you need 2/3 vote in order to approve the project.
When
I
that came up
respect-
before, excuse me, I concurred, we concurred on that process and the timing of that.
I respect that view, but I disagree with it completely. I think we owe it to townspeople to give them, ahead of any vote, whether it's at town meeting or any vote in the ballot box, with a fulsome picture of what it is we're doing and how we've addressed the various concerns. People have walked out of the last town meeting with a view of that project, a perspective from some of the negative comments about people feeling that certain things were left out or not properly covered. I think we owe it to them to show how those things have been accommodated, and to give those same folks an opportunity to come forward to say, this now what we see can work. And I think that would be far more powerful in terms of getting it through the special town meeting, and then moving over into the ballot. I think we owe that to them, and we owe it in that kind of a forum.
So, to my esteemed colleague to the right, is that what they say on the Senate floor? And I totally agree, Jeff. We do owe it to the community to let them know exactly what we're speaking of and what's at stake and what the plans are. I don't know that has to be done at a town meeting. I mean, we should do that before a town meeting anyways. I mean, we should be doing that from now until town meeting, whenever it is, and now between November 8th, when the election is. That's what we should be doing. That's what that's what the selectmen should be doing. That's what all the players that have a stake in this should be doing.
As long as those meetings are appropriately advertised.
Well, I think we should have meetings,
So
which
there's-
we've been doing with the COA. Well, anybody's invited, of course,
Right.
and to talk about it or have a forum, with John, with the cable TV. I mean, everybody should know what they're voting for, right?
That's
You
my
know,
Absolutely.
that's
That's my
that's the
point.
bottom line,
That's-
and I
yes.
agree with you. I just don't know that it has to be at a town meeting to do that. But I totally agree with you with regards to, people need to know the specifics. They need to have the facts. I think we last year assumed a lot, or I don't want to lump you guys in there. I guess I assumed that people knew a lot more about the project and the costs and what was involved, just because it's been spoken about for so long, but obviously many people didn't. And I think we're all cognizant of that now. So I think it's a campaign to let people know exactly what's at stake, exactly what it's going to cost. I still think that, I don't know what the answer is, because you never know until you do it, right? I guess my feeling was just it seems that it would have a better chance with the number of people that are going to come out to vote in a presidential election, from all walks of life, of all different ages, of all different backgrounds in the town of Hatfield, to get a large number of voters out, where you only need a simple majority would be to get the ball rolling. If we've done a good job with the ad campaign of explaining it to everybody, that should just follow up a week or two later for a special town meeting. That's just,
Yeah,
that's
but
Brian's opinion.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all.
I respect it. The ad campaign, however, can go on in any event, ahead of everything.
Right, it should.
But when you do it at the time they're going to vote, these are the same people that are going to have had an opportunity to raise their hand and ask a question, and hear it right then and there, as at the time that they're going to vote. So they can get their issues finally addressed right there in a meaningful way that may persuade them one way or another. So, and it's timely, and I think you'll get far more people drawn out to that activity than we will even with a series of promotional presentations, informational presentations.
What's your, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, well, we can't change the state election. We know that's November 8th.
Yeah.
And we are, looking at pretty close to the end of October at the earliest. But I still need to also hear from John Novak and the school as far as availability of space and.
And if I'm not mistaken, I thought part of, or at least a question I had was, would we by then have the official financial, not results, but
Free
financial,
cash.
the
Free cash.
financial results of free cash by that time, so that we're talking about a real number, a real
At this
amount.
point, we still expect to have free cash submitted by the very end of September, beginning of October. And the turnaround time for DOR, I like to usually say a week to 2 weeks. However, if you let them know that you are having, a town meeting, that they'll expedite it.
So the expectation is we will have that.
Yeah, so if it is submitted to them by October 1st, they should be able to complete the process by the middle of October. That shouldn't be a problem.
Would it be appropriate to hold off until our next meeting
I don't
to
think
make some firm decisions rather than doing that now?
A decision does
it's-
not have to be made this evening. We still have time.
Well, we need to lock down people,
Right.
like the town moderator and the facility, the school, and all the logistics that go behind the scene.
Before we make a decision as to when that
Yeah.
date's going to be.
Right.
Speaks for itself.
Well, I think along those lines, we need to give a date. So that's how you're going to lock them down is if with a particular date, whatever that date is. October 26th, November 14th, whatever. Again, I don't know what the. For me personally, I know we need a special town meeting. Jeff has some valid points. I guess I don't really mind, if it's before the election. I think that there's a better chance if it's after the election, but, as far as passing, that is. But either way, I think it behooves us to really get the word out and get the information from Kevin, who's helping us get the costs. If it ends up being, in the end of October, I can certainly live with that, because we have to get moving, we have to get this done, because we're part of the state, it's a mandated process that we signed up for, and we're part of, and we're into it, and we got to get moving, so.
Well,
So, if we
Personally,
wait,
I
that's
think
fine.
if
or
we wait,
go for whatever.
the 3 weeks, or how long till our next meeting, September what?
September
13th.
13th.
And we're talking about sealing this all up by the end of October, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
It's 2 months' time.
No, but,
You got to
Well-
put a
no,
notice.
but we
Say
have to.
September 13th.
We have to nail down schedules and facilities.
I know, but we don't have to decide
Right.
that tonight.
And just keep in mind, depending on the date of the town meeting, the warrant has to be posted 14 days
Prior.
prior.
That's fine.
So we need to make sure we have enough time to review the warrant and decide on articles that will be placed on the warrant.
I think there's too much out there that needs to be brought together so we have a clear indication of what we're trying to do and how we're going to go about doing it. And it behooves us to have that extra time between now and our next meeting. And we'll still get it done within a reasonable time frame.
Well, we just scheduled a meeting for September 7th.
Yeah.
We could have a discussion then and set the date. By then, I will know the availability of the schools,
For both dates.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest, why don't we pick a pre-election date and a post-election date and see when we can
Schedule
line up.
people and
Yeah.
place.
Are you available on,
okay,
The 26th and, what was that the date, the Wednesday? What the date?
right,
No,
26th
24th?
would be a Wednesday because the 25th is a Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, so that date and then some other date after.
maybe, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe November 15th, because that's a week after the
Right, the election. state
national
election.
election.
So-
So
so-
National.
October
Excuse me.
26th, November 15th. and-
Okay,
So see if we can knock down those two and then,
okay.
Okay.
I think other than,
That's a
I think
reasonable
anything
timeframe.
closer prior to the election, I think that's a good week if we're going to have it then. Because then you're trying to have a town meeting at the same time you're about to have an election. So I think you need that break in the middle, a week and a half or so if possible.
now, we haven't talked about other potential articles. Depending on free cash, I'll just throw out there, I think I've said this before, you may want to look at putting money into stabilization if the free cash is good.
Right, replenishing
I know there's
stabilization.
some issues about that. We may want to throw some funds on the water hookup connection with Northampton, if we would choose that. There were a couple other things that we may want to put some of it toward the town hall. Some other projects. I mean, just
Yeah, something to think
the
about.
spending list is,
Endless.
yeah, goes ad infinity,
True. A lot of stuff out there.
potentials. But I mean, certainly.
How do you prioritize it?
Well, maybe you put it in stabilization, just to, for the moment. Folks were very concerned about the level, we have over, what, 300-something thousand already in stabilization, but
Nothing against building it up at this point in time.
Build it up for the rainy
And
day. while you have it,
Exactly.
if we do, and we're expecting a good sum of free cash here.
Definitely.
Well, let's get the financial information in place first, so we know exactly what we're talking about.
Well, you won't have that finally until in October, when free cash is certified.
We'll then schedule our dates around that, as you suggested before. Does that work?
Well,
We'll come back to it.
Well, I think the key is, and I know we want to give everybody the advance notice of what's going to be on the warrant. But I mean, I think topic number one, of course, is the renovation of Town Hall. And then as we get closer to putting the warrant together, or the articles, we can sort of maybe cherry pick a few. It's just as people, and I'm sure the townspeople realize it, but there's so many things that need the town to vote on, which is fine, but you can't really wait or you don't want to wait a whole year. We're trying to run a business here. And so the reason for trying to get some of these other things, if you're having a town meeting, to just kind of take care of some business is why we are talking about that. I'm good, sorry,
I was just thinking,
talking a lot.
and the warrant would have to be posted, if it were the end of October, it would have to be posted as early as, I was saying, October 11th, 12th.
Right.
And that, at that point, we may be just learning what free cash, I mean, we'll have an idea what it is before, when we submit it.
We'll have an idea, and we should be talking, or I'll be glad to, or anybody can, talk to Terry, our rep at DOR, and get some help getting it processed.
I know that if we let them know we're going to have a special town meeting, they will, try to push that
They'll
through.
pull the plugs for us.
Yeah. So.
That
okay,
allows
so
us
we're all good with that for now.
parameters, so to speak, of what we're dealing with, yeah.
Yeah.
Not coming at it cold.
Unanticipated new business. I received a memo from the town clerk today, and she is requesting the board.
Motion to approve the following election workers: Laura Lee, Drune Bertram, Denise
Thank you.
Cartermanch, and Mary Vollinger.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry for the interruption.
And just for informational purposes, you have a few items in the information tab regarding hearing notices, and you also will have a copy of the town accountant's community preservation report. And the town accountant will be meeting with the Community Preservation Committee in the near future. I know Bob Wagner's supposed to be setting that up. So it's just, for your information, there's still some items, funds that the accountant is looking at, and, I'm sure after meeting with the Community Preservation Commission, they'll be able to, either decide if some items definitely will be closed out. There are some projects that are complete, the money's been spent, and those funds will be closed out. I mean,
My issue was, let's be careful about what it is we're closing out, in that if it says, for example, HVAC for town hall, just because we did this floor and we've used up X amount, but there was Y amount in it and there's a delta remaining, there's still other HVAC requirements, like in the museum, to be accommodated. So don't wipe that out just because we did the first
no,
floor.
if it says
It's for the whole building.
If it says HVAC for town hall,
Right.
right, you can still use that.
That's what I mean. So there's some
Absolutely.
things like that just
Right.
ask,
They're not all encompassing.
Right.
chatted with Derek to be very careful about.
Yeah,
Let's
well,
not prematurely close out some items that we've counted on as the kitty to put against this next phase.
he must look at the article that that authorized the money. If it's specific to something, then you cannot use it for anything
I
else.
understand. But if it says accessibility and X number of was.
Then you can use that money.
Right, as opposed to front steps,
Right,
then
right.
we can use it, even though we're not going to do front steps. If it's
Mm-hmm.
assessed for accessibility, it could be applied to the elevator, it could be applied to the ramp, a whole bunch of other things. All I'm concerned is,
Oh, you're saying if it's specific to front steps?
no,
it
if it's
could be
specific to, if it says
right.
accessibility, and there was a look at front steps that we discarded,
Mm-hmm.
or we got a waiver on, so we don't have to do front step, but it said accessibility, we could use the money
is
for the
correct. You
elevator.
could
We could
use
use it
it.
for the ramp, we could use it for
Yes, you may.
handrails at the proper distance, and a whole bunch of other things. So
the key phrase being accessibility for
Right.
purposes.
For the town hall, yeah.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
That's everything I have.
Could I just bring up a couple old business housing study? We ever draft the charter for the group?
I'm still working on that.
Okay,
I had reached out, if you remember, I had reached out to the
okay, that's fine. You were still,
Department of Housing. He was the gentleman.
recall we had the audit follow-up, and we talked about, and Darrell also asked for end of September, 1st of October, a quarterly look at how we're doing on the audit
Quarter-
findings.
yes.
So that would be a topic for us. Anything more about our approach on energy? Now, we got this PVCP
I
grant, but
reached-
how are we
right.
going to control, who's going to do the technical assessments to determine where we ought to be looking for help with grants?
We need to identify that. I had reached out to Catherine Rattay, and she's still waiting for the state to approve because the state
LTA?
and Pioneer Valley will enter into an agreement. She's waiting for them to approve that agreement.
But that shouldn't stop us from trying to identify the projects that we might
That's right.
seek money for.
We'll still look at those.
Horse Mountain, Kestrel Land Trust, remember they were asking us about a road and whether the town would maintain a little parking area.
That's right. I followed up with the DPW director.
DPW's got that, we've
Not
answered.
going to maintain that.
Okay, have we answered?
I did. I
Okay.
reported back to
Kat.
Kestrel, to Kat Deely. And that was a grant application that
Okay.
was
Right.
submitted as
Right.
well. We haven't heard anything on that. And hopefully we'll hear something soon from the state regarding the Smith Academy Park grant.
Okay.
We all set?
So other than just signing the contracts, which we can do once the meeting is closed.
Before we officially close the meeting for this evening, I have an announcement that I wish to make to townspeople in general. I have already informed my colleagues. As a result of conversation with my primary physician, he has strongly recommended that my time on the board be restrictive in terms of the length of time that I'm going to remain on the board. When I ran for this office this time round, I fully expected that I would be able to fill that 3-year term. Because of circumstances which I do not care to get into, and my hope is I'm going to live another 10 years, but as we all do, it doesn't necessarily follow. However, given that, I have talked it over with my family members and gotten their input, and my decision, which is irrevocable, is that I will serve until November 30th of this year. That leaves a time frame that needs to be covered, and over the next couple of months we'll work that out and deal with that scenario. But it is with regret that I have to inform you. I fully anticipated, as I indicated, that I would serve the full term, but I cannot justify, based on the information that I have, that I can promise to do that. And so, in light of that, I will be submitting my letter of resignation from the Board of Selectmen to the town clerk within the next 2 weeks. And my intent is to terminate my time on the board by November 30th. And I just want to say it is with regrets that I make this move, but also you have to be realistic about your own health. And given that, I believe that is the best course of action, and my family members as well believe that's the best course of action, and it's a strong recommendation from the physicians that are involved in that decision-making process. So it is not going to allow me the opportunity to serve my last, what would have been my last 3 years, which I've had the pleasure of serving the town would have been for 21 years. But that being said, life brings its ups and its downs, and I'm realistic to believe that I've had some pretty good ups and downs, and it has been a pleasure for me to be able to serve, and I look forward to serving the remainder of what will be the term for me. We've done a lot of things over the years. We've agreed and we've disagreed, but the bottom line is that we have decisions we've made collectively and individually has always been for the benefit of the town. There are times when I agree with my colleagues and they agree with me, and there's times that the reverse is true, but that's reality. And it's been a pleasure to work with them, and I look forward, and the staff, especially within the building. But I don't want to ramble on. It's simply that I will be done officially once I notify and as I say, it's an irrevocable decision. As soon as I submit the letter of resignation and the effective closing date to the town clerk, and I will be doing that within the next 2 weeks. So I wanted to let as many people know as I can possibly know that it's the straight story. It's not the fabricated one. That being said, we'll move on from there. And thank you as always.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, thanks.
Yep. Okay.
Motion to
Meeting is
adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
second. Third. All in favor?
Aye.